Hi there, it's Anne of Rosie Duck Designs here. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. In a recent tutorial I added a sentiment to the card that had been heat embossed, and at the time I did say that I wasn't going to go into heat embossing during the tutorial because in general people who are watching these tutorials are well aware what heat embossing is. Probably do it so much better than I do, so I kind of thought it wasn't worth taking up the time in that tutorial to just go through the whole process of how I heat emboss the sentiment. However, I'm fully aware that we discover new hobbies all the time, and you may be starting out on your card making journey and have absolutely no idea what I'm on about, what heat embossing is. So this is the point of this hopefully quite brief standalone tutorial that just covers the very basics of heat embossing. So heat embossing is great because it just gives you that added element to your card, and you can heat emboss sentiments or images, and so we're going to do a little bit of both today. To be able to heat emboss, you're going to need a Versamark pad, which is £8.75, and you are able to get a refill for that thereafter. You also need some embossing powders. Now there's two options, the basics or the metallics. Now the metallics are what I've got here because I have to say they're my favourites, they're what I use all the time. So we've got copper, gold and silver, and for the 3 pots it is £17. In addition, there is a basics collection which is white, black and clear. As I say, I tend to use, I do use white occasionally, but I do tend to go with the metallics, just a personal thing, but they're the ones I'm going to show you today. But obviously they're the same idea of how you use the basic collection is much the same. So that's all you need apart from a heat tool. Now this isn't a Stampin' Up heat tool. It's one I bought many years back when I first got into card making and thought I'd fancy a go at heat embossing. But it's absolutely fine, works perfectly well, so I can't, in all honesty, justify going out buying another piece of equipment when I really don't need it. However, if you're looking to buy a heat tool, the Stampin' Up one is really good. It costs £28, but where it differs from this one, it actually has 2 heat settings. This just has 1. Now 2 settings is quite good with heat because obviously we do work with different papers, from card to something much more delicate like vellum paper. So it's nice to have that option of the 2 different heats. But if you've already got a machine or a tool and you're not sure what to do with it and it's only got 1 setting, that's absolutely fine. That's all mine's got. But what I would say that if you're in the market for a heat tool, then one with 2 settings for heat would be brilliant. So that's basically all you need. Having said that, there's one little thing that I can't anymore say that we have them in Stampin' Up. We used to, and this is in fact a Stampin' Up one, and it's called an embossing buddy. Now I'm not sure whether you can get them on Amazon or in craft shops. If you can, they're well worth having. This I've had for probably something like 4.5 years, and it's only 3/4, well, it's 3/4 full still, so it's probably an idea that why we don't have them anymore. They're probably taking up a lot of room on a factory shelf somewhere, and they rarely got bought because they didn't run out very often. But they're really good, and it's basically a little muslin cloth with some powder in it. I made my own version. The stitching is not pretty because I'm absolutely rubbish at stitching, but that is a tuber grip bandage and some baby powder in the middle of that, and that works just as well. Somewhere I think there may be a blog post. If I can find it from the archives, I'll put it on the front. Very simple to put together, and actually worth the effort of either tracking one down or making one yourself. The reason being that when you use it, you effectively rub it over the surface of the card that you want to emboss. When we work, my hands get hot, or the weather's hot, so as we're touching the card, the surface gets a little bit damp, so as you pour the powder on, it will stick. There's also static going on, which also makes the powder stick. So effectively, adding that little layer of powder on the top prevents the powder sticking from where you don't want it to stick, so that it will stick to the image and not all over the card. So let's give this a go. Let's go with a very simple sentiment. That's the word I'm looking for. So I'm just going to put that in the middle. You need a piece of spare scrap paper. I've seen some demonstrators, they put this into a larger pot and then effectively hold whatever it is they're going to emboss over the pot and then spoon the powder on and the excess falls off. That's absolutely fine if that works for you. That's a good way. I tend to keep mine in these little pots. It's easier for storage, and this for me works really well. So if it's not broke, don't fix it. I'm kind of, so whatever you find the best. So I'm just covering my image or my sentiment. You can pick the paper up, fold it, and put your powder back into your little pot. Put the lid on, because we're going to have some air blowing, so we don't want the powder going everywhere. Now it's always worth having a very soft little paintbrush handy. I've literally tipped the stamp as I've put it down, so I've got these couple of little ridges of powder that I don't want. I'm just gently going around it, avoiding the image. I don't want to take the powder off of that, but just making sure that there's nothing on the surface that I don't want. And it's just worth taking your time over that. Finally, just tap it once again, and then we're ready to heat the image up. It's like a hairdryer. It will get hot and you're aiming it towards the element that's got to be heated. If you don't keep your piece of card secure, the air from here is going to blow it across the desk, and possibly it's going to finish upside down and smudged, etc. So you need to keep it secure, and obviously your hands are the best thing, but you don't want to burn your hands. And I am speaking from experience, it is possible. So I always have a pair of tweezers handy, so that I can grab hold of the end of my card. So I'm happy that this is fine for me, but if there's any doubt, make sure that you're keeping that away from your hands as far as possible so that you don't burn yourself. So that's always handy, especially if it's a small piece, because then you're just making sure that you're not going to burn yourself. So when we heat emboss, it's going to make some noise when I turn it on. When we heat emboss, run it backwards and forwards across or just above where you're wanting the heat to go. Don't direct it in one spot, just keep it moving, and then in theory the whole thing will emboss more or less at the same time. So now for the noise. I won't know until I play this back whether it actually came out on camera, but you can literally see as the powder heats up and effectively melts and then becomes this raised element of an embossed image. I'm just standing up to hopefully get that a bit nearer the camera. And it's always good at this point, just check your image and make sure that you haven't missed anything when you've been heating, and then if you have, just go back and heat the bit that hasn't already been heated up and embossed. So that's a simple sentiment. I've been dying to try this stamp. So this is a new one in the mini catalogue, the bears. I've been using the sentiments already, but I've not had a chance to play with the bear. So I've got no idea how this is going to come out, but I just wanted to give it a go and see what you look like as an embossed image. Now I've got a big stamp going on here, so I'm going to take my pad to my stamp. This could all go horribly wrong. but we don't know unless we try, do we? So again, I'm just going to rub that over with my embossing buddy. Get my piece of paper. So I've got a larger image going on here, so I want to make sure that it's well covered. The old less is more idea sort of kind of goes out the window, because you just want to make sure that you've got enough powder on your image. So I'm just bringing that back. I'm going to put that like so on my piece of paper. I've got to say, it looks quite nice. Quite pleased with that. Get that safely back in the pot. Looks like a very nice clean image, so I don't think I even need my paintbrush. There we go. I do like that. I see a card coming on. There we go. Especially with those lovely snowflakes that we've got in the new catalogue as well. Okay, so that's my next project sorted. No problems with that. You could, if you wanted to, you could add some colour with perhaps a stamping blend if you wanted to, but a nice white polar bear with silver edging. I think he looks amazing. So let's have a look at the gold one, and we're going to use a little bit of coloured card for that, just to get a feel of what that looks like. And I've got the small daisy from the Daisy Lane stamp set. It's getting late in the day, so bear with me. I'll use the one I made just to see if it works. There we go. I'm going to pop that in the middle, and we'll go with perhaps the copper one this time. Okay, put my powder back safely. Tiny bit there. One final tap. And we've got a nice copper daisy, which you can then cut out with the coordinating punch and make it into a pretty metallic flower. So that's the copper one. Now I'm going to have a go with the vellum now, just to show you what that looks like. So we'll use the big daisy this time, and we'll use the gold because we haven't played with that one yet. It's a bigger image, so I'm taking the pad to the stamp rather than the other way round. I need my embossing buddy. Make sure I've got it on the right side. Pop that down there. Now, some people will advise that you, particularly with a more delicate paper, to but use the heat from underneath. I find that as long as I don't get too close, that I'm quite happy going on from the top, I can sort of see more what I'm doing, and I personally, I just feel like I've got more control over where the paper's going. But that is another option, that if you want to, you can effectively apply your heat tool from underneath. I'm kind of better with it flat on a surface that I can keep it sort of more stable. So I want my gold. But again, choice is yours, and play around with it and find out what works for you. Because really that's what crafting is all about, is finding the way you want to do things, and what works for me won't necessarily work for you, and vice versa. So there we go. Trying to get the video finished before the light fades. I'd say these evenings drawing in are kind of catching up on us. I'm not sure if it's just me, but that must have missed summer. Not sure summer happened. So as I say, I'm going to be particularly careful with this, and I'm going to keep this moving probably a lot more than I even do over at the top of the card, just to make sure that I don't burn the surface of the vellum, because it's quite a delicate paper to work with. And there we go. That again is I hope you saw that how the effectively the embossing powder takes with the heat and becomes this embossed image, and that worked really well with applying the heat from above. Because of the delicacy of this paper, sometimes when I've been working with it, I've found it kind of curls up a little bit. Now with this, I'd be punching this out with a coordinating punch. But if, for example, I wanted the polar bear on something like this, and I wanted the whole piece of paper to be part of my card design, and it's a little bit, with the heat has curled up a little bit, just pop it under your grid paper or something, some heavy object like a book, and just leave it there whilst you're finishing off the rest of your card, and before you want to use it, and you'll find that that will be nice and flat and ready for you to use. So I think that's basically all I've got to say. I'm only here to really cover the basics of it, but obviously you can use heat embossing on a surface where you can actually sort of add colour on top of it, and the heat embossing won't take the colour, so your image will still stand above the colour, which is probably not making a lot of sense. So I will attempt to explain what I mean. So I've got my little sentiment here, and I've got a little brush, blending brush. I just want to, assuming I want to add a bit of colour to this piece of card, although I'm adding colour to my piece of card, my embossed part of that piece of card is not being lost just because I'm now putting colour on the top. Randomly putting colour on the top, but I'm hoping you get what I mean, so that I can change, having embossed this piece of card, I can change the colour of it quite happily, and I'm not going to lose the effectiveness of my embossed element. Helps if I put it under the camera, doesn't it? So fortunately it's not a lesson in how to use blending brushes. It's a bit smudgy there, isn't it? But hope you get where I'm going with this. So I think that's it. quit while I'm ahead, I think, is probably the best idea. So we've got our halo, we've got our colour on top of that, we've got some gold on vellum, we've got some copper onto some soft papaya, and we've got a really smart polar bear silver on white. He's definitely going to be featuring in a card in not too distant future. So as I say, if you're new to embossing, I hope that's been of some help to you. All the products that I've used, apart from obviously the heat tool, but Stampin' Up do have a heat tool, as I waffled on about in the beginning. So everything you need to begin your ideas with heat embossing is available on my online shop, so I'll put a link to that as usual on the front of the video. So the next time that I use it in a card, hopefully if you're new to this you'll know what I'm talking about. I'll be back with another project in the not too distant future, but until then, please look after yourselves. I will see you again very soon. Bye for now.